Play. Welcome to another League of Legends video. This is going to be a topical commentary where I wanted to just bring up a topic that I've had on my mind and discuss it with you guys, get a feel for what you're thinking, and just start a bit of a discussion here. So the topic in general is snowballing, and this is something that Riot has been quite vocal about tinkering with in the preseason, and in Season 4 they made a lot of changes to the way that the game snowballs, and this is something that I wanted to talk about. And so let me take a second and just kind of lay the groundwork for the discussion, because there's a tension between two good things that's going on here. So on one hand you have the fact that you want to reward players for early success. If you go to lane and you get 2 kills on your laning opponent and you're up 30 CS, you should have an advantage. You should be stronger than your opponent. You should, have an easier time, going on to win that game. All of this is very true, and I think that it's important and it's healthy. How demoralizing would it be that if you are playing really well and you're dominating your laning opponent, but yet they have so many opportunities to come back that, your early lead feels insignificant. That is a bad thing. Now that's the one, principle on one hand. And then on the other hand, we have the idea that also if it's too snowbally and if it's too difficult to come back, then the game can feel very demoralizing on the other hand, that if you make an early mistake, you can be punished for it and end up, not really being able to, like, if you give up a first blood to somebody like Riven, if snowballing is too strong, she's just gonna straight up win the game off of that first blood. Or other strong early laning champions that, Kha'Zix, for example, if some of these other assassins, maybe LeBlanc, if they get an early advantage or an early lead, they have so much damage and so much snowball potential, Kali, that the game is pretty much just over if snowballing is too strong. So those are the two kind of contrasting, conflicting principles that are guiding this discussion. And so, and then if we also look at the way that Riot has changed the game in Season 4, there have been a lot of changes that have really pushed the game in a certain direction that has kind of made it, a little bit more of a late game focus, a little bit harder to snowball the game out of control. I'd say all those things are true. And so, let's talk about some of those changes. We've got, they decreased the value of First Blood Gold. They changed a lot of changes to the jungle, and the fact that jungle monsters now have experience based on the level of the players in the game. And so, whether or not the players are a lower level, they can just go farm the jungle and they can catch up faster. Dragon is now worth more gold the later on you get into the game. So if your team is behind and you're able to secure a couple of mid to late game dragons, that can be a big comeback mechanic. There are a lot of different things that Riot has done to make it easier to come back and to make it less penalizing to get behind early. So that's kind of setting the stage for the discussion. And so, one of the things that I am really curious about is, balancing these two competing aspects. Because I do think that they're both incredibly important. And, oh, that tear got so low. They're both incredibly important because, if on one hand, like I said, there needs to be fairness. Like, if you do really well and you get ahead, like, you should be ahead and you should do really well and you should be rewarded for that. That all is fair and it makes sense and it's important. But then, like I said, on the other hand, I have played games, and I would definitely say in Season 3 that it was very true that because snowballing was maybe overtuned a little bit, that it made it a little bit too hard to come back. And so, if you compare and contrast a lot of the champions that are being played now versus in Season 3, I would say that now, in Season 4, a lot of the more late-game champions have been really, really strong. If you look at, somebody like Nasus or, Dr. Mundo, he's a really good example of somebody who has benefited greatly from the fact that the game is going on longer and that he can get his full items and become that, monster that we all know him to be. Well, if you contrast that with Season 3, what were some of the strongest picks then? Well, we had, like Riven in the top lane. She was a beast. A lot of other different champions we could talk about, in Season 3 that attained a lot of popularity. There were a lot of assassins, a lot of these very heavy snowballs type champions that if they picked up an early kill, look at Fizz and Zed, a lot of those types of champions. So there definitely has been a shift in the popular champions, in the champions that are being played, towards more of a late game focused style. You know, you've got like Nasus and, like I said, some of those other big tanks who take a little bit longer to scale up. Well, they've got more time to scale up, so they don't necessarily need to worry about it quite so much. So overall, the game has definitely shifted in that direction. It really has impacted the game in when you combine it with a lot of the other changes, the fact that vision has been changed to the fact that it makes it harder to close out games. You know, all of these things kind of come together and have really changed the dynamic of League of Legends. And so I guess I think it's a really interesting balancing point, and one that we should really keep an eye on as the season progresses, because I do think that it is really important that Riot finds a perfect balance, because I think perhaps right now things are tuned a little bit overly in the direction of making it too easy to come back. But you know, it's one of those things where it's a really difficult balance to find. And what I guess I'm really hoping for with this video and in the comments is that you guys can chime in and really say, you know, hey, I think that Riot is been doing a good spot and moving in the right direction, or not, and give reasons why, and, you know, explain and defend your arguments. And, you know, because personally I think that they made a step in the right direction, but I also wonder if maybe they've gone a little bit too far and maybe they need to tone it down a little bit, because, you know, games are without a doubt lasting longer. Games are without a doubt, you know, being dragged on a little bit longer, and late game champions are quite strong. You know, and especially if you look at, you know, a lot of the early game champions, a lot of their impact is mostly being felt in the jungle, because, you know, no longer, you know, a lot of lanes have just become a farm fest. Especially if you look at top lane. Top lane, I think, has become a little bit, you know, top lane used to be, you know, a very, very snowball-y, very, you know, if you give up first blood to, you know, a high damage champion like Riven or Jax or something like that, I mean, the lane is really almost over. And now I would say top lane has really shifted, and the dynamic of top lane has become one where it's become a snooze fest, and there's just a ton of farming, and it's, you know, a little bit more boring to play. And if you look at mid lane, you've got a lot of the strong mid laners are also, you know, like I'm playing Ziggs this game. You know, these are, again, very farm-heavy mid laners. Kayle is another good example of a champion who scales really hard in the late game and doesn't necessarily, you know, I mean, she can be strong in lane, but you know, she's not like this overpowering early game monster. She's, you know, somebody who wants to farm, push the wave, get a lot of creeps, and eventually become, you know, that late game carry. You know, there are a lot of other, you know, Gragas is another good example of, you know, he's melee, you know, he has his weaknesses, but, you know, because of the way that the game is slowing down and scaling up a little bit, he has an easier time getting his big items and, you know, having those huge, you know, Q plus ultimate combos where he just blows up somebody with 2 spells, you know. And I guess I just feel like perhaps the game should shift back in the other direction. And it's one of those things where it's not just one thing that's factoring in, there are multiple factors that are kind of coming together to make this perfect storm and make it so that it is, you know, it is a little bit too easy to just kind of slow the game down and scale into late game and rely on a late game team composition to win for you. But then at the same time, like, I worry that if they did change much of anything, then that would turn it around in the opposite direction and make it too hard, you know, to rely on your late game and too early game focus. I don't know, it just is a very difficult balance to find. So anyways, as this game kind of wraps up, we've got a nice big lead here, and things are looking pretty good for us. I'd really like to hear your comment in the comment section below, your thoughts on, you know, how the state of the game in terms of it. Does it scale too hard? Does it scale not enough? You know, where is the balance right now between early and late game? And what could Riot be doing to make the game better? So anyways, leave your thoughts down below. Definitely let me know what you're thinking. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know down in the comment section below. And I'll be sure to, I'll be watching the comments and responding to, and, you know, I'm just looking forward to just an enjoyable discussion. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.